The German prisoners believed the shortened rations meant America was finally running out of food, until a work truck carried them through a small Missouri town and stopped beside a grocery store whose windows were packed with bread, canned fruit, coffee, meat, and sugar, while one prisoner stepped closer to the glass, noticed something that made no sense, and asked the guard why food they had been told was scarce was stacked higher than a man could reach. In October 1944, 80 German prisoners at Camp Hawthorne in Missouri were told that bread, coffee, and meat would be reduced for several days because 2 supply trucks had failed to arrive. The explanation spread badly through the barracks, and by breakfast many men were convinced the United States had begun to feel the same shortages they remembered from Europe. Sergeant Paul Miller tried to stop the rumors during morning count, but the prisoners pointed to smaller bread portions and weak coffee as proof that the camp stores were nearly empty. Otto Weiss, a former grocery clerk from Hamburg, said nothing until he saw the kitchen workers scraping the bottom of a flour bin that had been full the week before. That afternoon, Miller took 12 prisoners on a road cleaning detail after a storm dropped branches across the highway outside town. Otto joined the truck because he spoke English well enough to translate instructions, and the guards warned everyone that entering a civilian building or leaving the marked work area would be treated as a serious violation. The detail finished the first section before a radiator hose split on the army truck. Miller directed the driver toward a garage in the nearest town, then kept the prisoners seated in the back while the vehicle rolled slowly along a main street lined with a drugstore, bakery, hardware shop, and one large grocery store. The truck stopped directly beside the grocery while the driver crossed to the garage. Otto looked through the open side and saw stacked loaves of bread, pyramids of canned fruit, bags of flour, jars of coffee, boxes of cereal, and a butcher counter visible beneath bright lamps, which made every prisoner near him lean toward the street. One man laughed because he thought the window had been arranged for propaganda, but Otto noticed customers entering with small books in their hands and leaving with ordinary paper bags. He stepped down from the truck to read a sign near the door, forcing Miller to cross the sidewalk and order him back immediately. Before Otto climbed aboard, he pointed to the words "ration points required" beside the meat display and asked why a country supposedly short of food could still keep so much in one store. Miller answered that rationing limited what people could buy, not whether every shelf had to be empty, but the explanation only made the prisoners more curious. The grocer, Harold Bennett, came outside after hearing the argument and showed Miller a delivery invoice proving that sugar, meat, and canned goods were controlled by points while vegetables, bread, and many other foods remained available without the same restrictions. Otto stared at the figures and realized the system looked nothing like the empty shops he had known near the end of the war. A woman leaving the store dropped her ration book, and one prisoner picked it up before it slid beneath the truck. He handed it to Miller, who returned it, but Bennett suddenly noticed that several stamps inside the book carried the same serial prefix as ration coupons recently rejected by his wholesaler. Miller stopped the work detail from leaving and asked Bennett to explain. The grocer produced 3 rejected coupon sheets from his office, and Otto recognized a purple camp accounting mark on the back of one sheet, turning a simple glimpse through a grocery window into a question about how paperwork connected to the prisoner camp had reached a civilian store. Subscribe for more forgotten German POW stories like this one. Miller took the rejected coupon sheets back to Camp Hawthorne and delivered them to Captain Robert Hale, who supervised food accounts. Hale compared the purple mark with the camp kitchen stamp and confirmed that it belonged on internal ration records, not civilian coupon books circulating in town. The next morning, Hale brought Otto and Miller to the storeroom because Otto had worked in retail accounting before the war. They opened the previous month's ledgers and found that quantities of sugar, canned meat, and coffee had been recorded as received even on dates when the kitchen staff remembered shortages. Hale ordered the storeroom weighed and counted before breakfast. 10 cases of canned meat and 6 sacks of sugar were missing from the totals, while the ledgers still showed every case present, which meant the smaller prisoner portions had not been caused only by delayed trucks. A civilian delivery driver named Earl Dawson arrived while the count was underway and presented an invoice for flour and vegetables. Miller checked his truck before unloading it and found 2 empty wooden cases beneath a canvas sheet, both carrying faded Camp Hawthorne food labels that should have remained inside the compound. Dawson claimed the boxes had been reused for farm produce, but Hale found fresh grease around the nails and ordered the truck held. Before military police arrived, Dawson walked toward the latrine, climbed a rear fence beside the maintenance yard, and disappeared into a cornfield. The escape forced Hale to inspect every civilian delivery from the previous 6 weeks. One invoice carried Bennett's grocery store address as an emergency drop point, making the grocer appear connected to the missing camp supplies, even though he had been the person who first revealed the suspicious coupons. Military police entered Bennett's store after closing time and checked serial numbers on ration stamps collected that week. Most were legitimate civilian issues, but 9 sheets matched numbers recorded as destroyed at Camp Hawthorne after clerical errors. Bennett showed investigators that he had accepted those stamps from 3 customers who all claimed to work for a county food distributor. One had also sold him a discounted case of canned peaches, which he refused after noticing the military packing code beneath the commercial label. Otto examined the rejected peach case and found 2 layers of paper on one side. Beneath the grocery label was a camp supply stencil and a handwritten letter D, the same mark he had seen beside several missing entries in the storeroom ledger. Hale searched the accounting office and discovered that every entry marked D had been approved by civilian quartermaster assistant Frank Doyle. Doyle had authority to correct delivery totals, destroy damaged ration forms, and sign empty boxes out as waste, giving him access to both the missing food and the coupons appearing in town. Before Doyle could be questioned, a telephone call reported that Dawson's abandoned delivery truck had been found beside the river. Inside were ration books, empty camp cartons, and a notebook listing stores across 3 counties. But Bennett's grocery appeared only once with the word refused beside it. The discovery cleared the grocer of knowingly buying camp food, but escalated the problem inside Hawthorne. Hale suspended outside work details, sealed the canteen, and ordered every ration account frozen, while prisoners who had just seen a grocery store full of food returned to barracks, where even their normal camp supplies were now locked behind an investigation. The suspension caused trouble within a day because the camp kitchen could not issue replacement sugar or canned meat until investigators separated legitimate stock from the altered records. Prisoners who had already believed America was running short now took the locked storeroom as proof that the grocery store window had been staged for civilians. A group led by Sergeant Wilhelm Krantz refused to enter the mess line and demanded that Hale explain why American families could buy peaches and coffee while prisoners received smaller portions. Otto argued that the store required ration points and that stolen camp supplies might be causing the shortage, but several men accused him of repeating the guard's story. Hale decided to show the prisoners the records rather than argue through the fence. He placed the receiving ledger, delivery invoices, and store coupon sheets on a table in the recreation room, where Otto translated the dates and quantities while Miller kept the meeting orderly. Krantz noticed that one missing meat shipment had supposedly arrived on a Sunday when the camp gate log showed no civilian truck entering. He pointed to the contradiction, and Hale immediately pulled the gate books for the other marked dates. For deliveries existed on paper without matching gate entries. Each had been signed by Doyle, and each corresponded to a week when kitchen workers had reduced portions because expected stock could not be found. Military police searched Doyle's room and found no food, but they discovered a key to an unused cold storage building at an abandoned creamery outside town. Hale took Miller, Otto, and 2 investigators there because Otto could identify the military packing codes if the missing cases remained intact. The creamery door opened onto stacks of canned meat, sugar, coffee, and fruit packed behind ordinary farm crates. Several cases still carried Camp Hawthorne markings, while others had been stripped, and covered with commercial labels ready for civilian sale. A second room contained blank ration books, discarded military invoices, and a hand press used to place false validation marks on coupon sheets. The equipment showed that Doyle's group had not simply stolen food. It had created paperwork that allowed stolen goods to enter civilian trade without immediately exposing the source. Footsteps sounded above the cold room, and investigators found Dawson hiding in the loft with two county distributor uniforms. He surrendered after the exits were covered and admitted driving camp food to the creamery, but he said Doyle handled the buyers and kept the names in a notebook stored elsewhere. Dawson revealed that the thefts had increased after hearing prisoners complain about reduced camp meals. Doyle believed shortages inside the compound would be blamed on wartime rationing, while full civilian stores would make any prisoner accusation sound impossible. The consequence became more serious when Hale learned that one stolen shipment contained powdered milk reserved for the camp infirmary. A German prisoner recovering from pneumonia had missed part of his prescribed ration during the same week, forcing the camp doctor to document that the theft had affected medical care, not only meals. Hale restored emergency food from Army reserves, but he refused to reopen the canteen or work details until Doyle was found. Otto returned to Barrack 6 carrying a copy of the creamery inventory, and even Krantz stopped calling the grocery window propaganda when the missing camp case numbers appeared beside the shelves they had seen in town. The reversal began when Bennett telephoned Camp Hawthorne and reported that a man matching Doyle had entered his grocery shortly before closing, asking whether the rejected peach case was still in the storeroom. Bennett delayed him by claiming the manager held the key, then sent a stock boy through the rear door to call police. Doyle left before officers arrived, but he abandoned a paper sack beside the butcher counter. Inside were legitimate ration stamps, a train ticket for Kansas City, and a list of serial numbers matching the coupon sheets recovered from Dawson's truck. Hale compared the list with the camp's destroyed form register and found something unexpected. Doyle had not created the first false coupons himself. The numbers had been certified by a regional ration clerk whose signature appeared on records from several military camps, not only Hawthorne. Military investigators contacted the regional office and discovered that clerk, Arthur Bell, had reported dozens of coupon sheets destroyed after printing errors. In reality, many sheets had been passed to Doyle, who used them to make stolen military food look like legally rationed civilian stock. Bell was arrested at his office with unused stamps hidden inside a document cabinet. His records identified two wholesalers who had knowingly accepted diverted goods, but Bennett's store appeared in a separate column labeled clean, confirming that its crowded shelves had come through normal civilian supply channels rather than the theft network. That finding changed what Otto and the other prisoners thought they had witnessed. The grocery store had not been full because Americans faced no restrictions, and it had not been staged to deceive them. It was operating inside a ration system where customers needed points for certain foods while ordinary deliveries continued to keep many shelves stocked. Investigators then traced Doyle's train ticket to a small freight station outside Jefferson City. Miller and military police reached the platform before departure and found Doyle wearing a railway worker's coat while loading a suitcase onto a baggage car. Doyle tried to leave through the freight yard, but a switchman closed the side gate, and police stopped him between two parked boxcars. His suitcase contained Bennett's rejected ration stamps, the missing buyer notebook, and cash divided into envelopes by store name. The notebook showed that several merchants had unknowingly purchased one diverted shipment before refusing later offers, while two wholesalers had deliberately bought repeated loads. The distinction allowed investigators to recover stolen food without accusing every store that had handled a suspicious case. Hale brought the evidence back to camp and reopened the kitchen accounts using verified stock only. The first corrected inventory showed that Hawthorne had enough food to restore the normal prisoner menu once the stolen cases were replaced from Army reserves. Otto asked whether the men could be shown how civilian rationing actually worked rather than hearing another explanation through guards. Hale obtained permission for a small supervised group to visit Bennett's store after hours, with no purchases and no contact with customers. When the prisoners entered that evening, Bennett showed them ration point charts, wholesaler invoices, sugar limits, meat stamps, and shelves filled with foods that required no points at all. The reversal was visible in front of them. America was rationing important goods, but rationing was not the same thing as empty stores, and their own shortage had been created by theft hidden behind that misunderstanding. The next morning, Hale restored the regular meal schedule and posted a translated notice explaining which camp shortages had come from delayed deliveries and which had been caused by the stolen stock. Instead of asking the prisoners to trust the notice, he attached the corrected inventory numbers that Otto had helped verify. Krantz compared the figures with the creamery list and admitted publicly that the grocery store could not have been part of the deception he had imagined. He then volunteered to help the kitchen count incoming cases so that future rumors could be checked against visible records before spreading through the barracks. A replacement convoy arrived before noon carrying flour, coffee, powdered milk, canned meat, and sugar. Miller opened each truck at the gate, while 2 American clerks and 2 prisoner representatives recorded the seal numbers independently, creating a paper trail Doyle's old method could not quietly alter. The camp doctor received the medical milk first and signed it directly into the infirmary store. The prisoner recovering from pneumonia was given his full prescribed ration, making the first corrected delivery visible where the theft had caused its most serious harm. Outside the camp, federal investigators used Doyle's notebook to recover military food from 2 wholesalers and prosecute the men who had knowingly bought it. Merchants who had rejected suspicious cases were cleared, and Bennett received written confirmation that his store had cooperated with the investigation. Bennett sent the camp a copy of that letter along with the rejected peach label that Otto had first examined. Hale allowed the label to be posted beside the corrected ration ledger, where the camp stencil underneath the commercial paper could be seen without explanation. Several weeks later, another storm damaged roads near town and Hawthorne received a request for a small cleanup detail. Hale approved it only after new transport controls were in place, and Otto found himself riding the same route past Bennett's grocery. This time the truck stopped because a delivery wagon blocked the street, and the prisoners could see customers presenting ration books at the counter while shelves remained stocked behind them. No one called the display propaganda, and no one mistook the stamps for proof that food had vanished from America. A woman leaving the store recognized Otto as the prisoner who had returned her ration book during the first visit. She did not approach the truck, but she lifted the booklet in her hand and nodded once before walking away, giving the men a simple view of the system they had spent weeks arguing about. Miller then handed Otto an official camp copy of the investigation result. It stated that the prisoner ration reductions linked to the missing shipments had been caused by criminal diversion, not by a general failure of the American food supply, and that the affected accounts had been corrected. The finding became permanent when the new inventory procedure was adopted at other camps using the same regional supply office. Duplicate signatures, sealed truck numbers, and separate medical logs made it far harder for another clerk to hide missing food behind ordinary wartime rationing. That evening, Otto entered the mess hall and received the same measured portion listed on the corrected board. He placed the old peach label beside his tray for a moment, then returned it to the record's envelope, because the object that had once suggested American abundance now proved something more precise. The shelves were real, the rationing was real, and so was the theft that had made the prisoners confuse one with the other. Months later, Otto received his transfer papers and passed through the camp kitchen one final time before boarding the truck. Hale gave him the rejected peach label, now stamped as closed evidence, and Otto folded it into his prisoner booklet. When the convoy rolled through town, Bennett's grocery was open. Customers were handing over ration points, and the shelves behind them were still full enough to be seen from the road. Otto did not turn to the other prisoners or explain what it meant, because by then every man in the truck understood the difference between scarcity, rationing, and a lie hidden inside the accounts. Most people know how World War II ended. Very few know what happened inside these prison camps. Subscribe for more Untold WW2 stories.